It is Thursday, March 12, 2020. I'm Yael Avi, and these are the Cryptosphere's top stories for today. As world markets plummet, Bitcoin is in for the ride, dropping sharply and painfully. Libra's rival project Celo is plugging ahead with a promise to launch its mainnet in April. Finally, a new bill is aiming to regulate cryptocurrencies. Will it produce the clarity the sphere wants so badly? Hello. Well, it's going from bad to worse for the global economy. Stock markets worldwide crashing following the World Health Organization's declaration on Wednesday that the coronavirus has reached global pandemic status. Bitcoin, that up until now has been holding on for its dear life, is dropping like a rock. It is down nearly 16% on the day, currently trading at the time of this taping at roughly $6,600. The altcoin market is faring even worse, with the leading tokens down by at least 10%. Joining me is Asha Westrop-Evans, BLOCKTV senior correspondent. Right now, huge drops. Where is this heading?
Yeah, I mean, huge drops and massive volatility. I mean, even those numbers you just read out from the time of you reading to the time of us speaking now are no longer accurate. I mean, that's how quickly this market is moving. We saw an absolute flash crash that we can see right there, which if we add in a couple of the major alts, throwing in Ethereum there in the yellow and XRP there in the purple, mirrored perfectly across a number of coins across the ecosystem. This really was a dramatic fall that seemed to come out of nowhere. It'd be fascinating to see what comes out of this and where to from here, whether this was driven by larger market equity sentiment, whether this was a big sell-off on the Plus token scam. I mean, a number of narratives I'm sure will emerge out of this, but no doubt this was a major flash crash, the likes of which Bitcoin has not seen in quite some time. And as you mentioned from the time we started recording this, the drop seems to be in the double digit. Last time we saw Bitcoin react so badly, so to speak, was when? The last time we've seen it react that badly, not necessarily
correlated to anything, right?
Yeah, the last time that we've seen prices of this magnitude, when we were back down around this level, was not seen since May of 2019, when we were trading this low in the low 6,000s and even dipping at its peak of this drop so far into around the 5.9 territory. It's been a long time since we've been there. It flies in the face of a lot of the narratives that have been seen at this moment. Yael, again, it's still all being digested as we speak right now. It'll be fascinating to see how the market plays this out, whether there is indeed a rebound. A few seem to have been attempted, but again, looking on these short-term charts, it's really hard to see where this volatility
Let's take a look at Tether, because everything is so perilous at this moment. Is Tether proving itself to be some sort of a stable coin in this?
Yeah, Tether actually in the moment seems to have gone up ever so slightly, trading now at around $1.04. But generally it is holding its own in this market for the foreseeable time. We'll see if that plays out, and if the stablecoin truly lives up to its name. Stable.
It lives up to its name. And as we mentioned, all of this coming as a reaction as all the markets seem to be dropping. We're taping this before the United States markets have opened up. There was a speech yesterday by the President of the United States that, needless to say, one could argue is affecting every single market. What are we expecting today throughout the day, in addition to Bitcoin? Is there any way of even foreseeing this?
Look, I mean, the Dow is already pointing to another 4-digit down at the open as the futures markets are trading at a below 1,000-point drop, above a 1,000-point drop for the Dow. But pre-opening, it's looking like we're going to have another write-off day. Really, a lot of red being seen across the markets. It doesn't seem like US President Donald Trump's speech last night, in which he closed travel from Europe to the United States for 30 days, did much to ease tensions into the short term. Whether it can help out in the long term, again, hate to use this phrase, but remains to be seen.
Remains to be seen. Finally, that entire narrative of safe haven, whatnot, as we're seeing these drops while we're speaking, can people say this definitely is not a safe haven asset?
Look, to say definitively either way, might be premature, but certainly when you're looking in the terms of what a safe haven is supposed to do, which is provide safe, secure, access for your money, a safe haven spot to keep your finances, I can't imagine this sort of absolute, incredible volatility over such short time frames is where people want to be storing their money, and that's in that essence, and it does take a big hit to that safe haven narrative.
Entirely. So needless to say, we will be updating throughout the day as to what is happening in the market. Asha Westrop-Evans, thank you for this report. Now, Celo, a new 50-member strong cryptocurrency developer platform that includes the likes of Anderson Horowitz and Coinbase Ventures, has hit the scene. A nonprofit, the Celo Foundation's Alliance for Prosperity, offers a way for developers to build decentralized mobile apps that are based on Celo's blockchain platform and USD stablecoins. The ambitious project that some have set up as a rival to Facebook's Libra is set to launch in April. And to share what we know about it, I am joined now by BLOCKTV's senior correspondent, yet again, Asher Westrup-Evans. Asher, is this really a Libra killer? And by the way, everything seems to be a killer right now financially, but will this be the Libra killer?
I mean, look, Yael, that might be overextending a little bit. This project, while certainly ambitious, looking to set up a whole network for developers, for users alike, with an internal stablecoin, and actually, in a way, a couple of stablecoins. I'll get into that in a second. But a whole internal monetary system backed by some of these big players. As you mentioned, Anderson Horowitz, right. Coinbase, some of these players that are now being accused of double dipping when it comes to this Celo project and the Libra Association, how they'll be on both, how they'll work in terms of a conflict of interest, portfolios in that regard. Interesting to see. But I think the key message here is that the industry is not standing still. In the face of rampant sort of regulatory attacks on Libra that have taken place from the highest levels, primarily coming out of the US government, but around the world, it was a very high-profile attacks that have taken place, and this has come out as a project that could potentially slip under the radar with less brand name recognition, with less of the sort of controversy that's tied to the Facebook name. Perhaps a project like this with a number of important institutional backers could manage to slip under. Now, I mentioned there that their monetary system, internal monetary system, is very interesting. They have a dual currency system that's working on there. People are able to exchange other cryptocurrencies they have for what's known as Celo Gold. Then they change that gold for Celo dollars, which they can actually spend within the Celo system. It's a confusing system which some have already come out criticizing, saying that there's risks of arbitrage moves here, which right. Celo itself, as said, they're not concerned about. There's a sort of the dual tiering risks sort of sounding a little bit like some of the sort of, don't want to throw this accusation around, Ponzi schemes and whatnot that have been used in the past with similar mechanisms. It's not saying that it's illegitimate. I'm not trying to accuse them of any particular misdoing.
But it has to be clarified.
It does need some clarification.
Some clarification. I'm Asher Westrup-Evans, BLOCKTV senior correspondent. Thank you for this report.
Pleasure.
A new bill submitted earlier this week by Arizona Representative Paul Gosar aims to revamp government policy on cryptocurrencies and finally bring some much-needed clarity for the sphere. Now, the United States Cryptocurrency Act of 2020 stipulates that digital assets are of three kinds: commodities, securities, and currencies, and that the United States CFTC, the SEC, and the Treasury's FinCEN are the three agencies that will regulate them. Now, the language of the bill seems to cement the status of digital assets like Bitcoin as cryptocommodities rather than cryptocurrencies. Breaking with typical congressional practice, Gosar is presenting the bill without a co-sponsor, which has led some to question whether it was at all feasible. Now, with all the coronavirus headlines and conflicting statements from the President of the United States as to the severity of the pandemic, it is easy to forget that an election year is still underway in America. Many in the cryptosphere have long hoped for a political voice within the upcoming races for the Senate and the House, in addition, of course, to the presidency, to promote their agenda. Cue in a new initiative, spearheaded by none other than Sphere influencer Luke Kerner. The initiative, titled Propagandao, is hoping to inject a candidate into the congressional race that would serve as a receptacle to push the Sphere's agenda on the Hill if elected. Confused? Here's how Luke Kerner explains it.
Again, I think this is just an example of the kind of innovation that you can get with this new technology. The idea is, historically, obviously, we've always voted for representatives who say they're going to do ABC, right, and then they get to Congress, and more often than not, ABC is not what they do. And so with this candidate running for Congress, we haven't announced who it is yet. Hopefully that'll be next week. But he has agreed to actually be completely transparent in everything he does, the money raised, where the money goes, but also in terms of voting and the bills that he puts forward. He's going to let the DAO decide, the community decide, what he does. So effectively, it'll be the community that will be kind of running the seat. And that really is, it doesn't get more representative than that. And so if what we really want is representative government, I think there's a huge opportunity for DAOs to play a major role in that.
On a lighter note, video game publisher Activision has launched what is being dubbed as the biggest Fortnite challenger to date. Quote, well, it's called Call of Duty Warzone, a free-to-play version of its best-selling first-person shooter. And just like Fortnite, the Battle Royale shooter game has its own virtual in-game currency system, and who best to critique it but our own Zachy Hennessy. Zachy, please, what the heck?
Yeah, so, Call of Duty Warzone, they've released itself. Call
Right.
of Duty has released Call of Duty Warzone, which is their answer to the Battle Royale format. They've dabbled with this in the past, but this is kind of their real tour de force in terms of entering this space, and it's taking off very well. And there's kind of a discussion in the cryptosphere community about whether or not the inclusion of an in-game currency really is impactful towards cryptocurrency as a whole, because
Right.
A digital currency is theoretically good towards gearing people towards spending buying digital currencies, spending digital currencies, etc.
Mass adoption.
If you were to ask me how big of a deal this is, I would say to Call of Duty players, it's a big deal. It's really nice. It's a fun game. To cryptocurrency, speculators across the globe, it's nothing. It's a non-story. Really, I think in terms of, there's always been this discussion of, if you're spending money in-game, then that's kind of like gearing you towards cryptocurrency. I highly disagree. I think that, even specifically about Call of Duty Warzone, there's nothing specific about this over Fortnite, over Apex Legends, over Farmville that gives it that edge towards cryptocurrency adoption. That none of these other games have done so. They've been using in-game currency all of this time.
And how does this put into play this notion of the IRS taxing?
The IRS taxing. So the IRS, they had this snafu where they had labeled cryptocurrency and in-game currency kind of together, and stated that they were both liable to be taxed. But then they went back, they corrected themselves. It's a digital currency. Really, again, for this specific currency, Call of Duty points, I believe they're called, COD points, whatever you want to call them. It's a non-issue. They're not liable to be taxed, and gamers will continue to spend them. But I don't think that you're going to see a lot of movement in the cryptocurrency sphere, especially among all of the bear market that's going on.
The bear market trees that we're living amongst right now. Yeah. Zachy Hennessy, thank you for putting that into perspective. Time for Troll of the Day. It's a day of trolling. Who best to do it but Yona Hochhauser?
Thanks, Yao. Now, in uncertain times like these, there's one man to listen to. One voice of reason to cling to for stability, accurate information, and strength. A man looked up to and depended upon by people all over the world. Now, yesterday, that great leader gave his message of optimism and unity in the face of the coronavirus to the world. Let's listen.
The coronavirus. If you look at statistics inside Wuhan and the major cities where they're rounding people up and bedding them in open stadiums in open air in the wintertime in northern China, they have a death rate of 2%. 2 out of every 100 die. That's a heavy death rate. Well, God damn it, if you're out there freezing, don't have enough hydration, of course. Look at the death rate outside of the cities. It is 0.16%. What's the death rate from flu type A and B? 0.17%. So it's slightly less deadly than the flu. Please, God, this is a false fucking flag if there's ever been one.
And the conclusion, Yona?
We're all safe. John McAfee said so. Nothing to worry about.
I don't know. What I heard is run for the hills. Get out of the cities. So I think that's what we're going to do. But thank you, Yona. That was Around the Block for today. Thank you for watching. For more blockchain, tech, cryptocurrency news, which are bleak today, visit us at blocktv.com.
Watch us on Amazon Fire TV and Roku.